Over a period of 10 days last July, 3 separate groups launched spacecraft towards Mars. The United Arab Emirates, China, and the United States all did that. And now, after 7 months of travel, those spacecraft are now in the vicinity of Mars. And so you may have heard last week that the United Arab Emirates' spacecraft entered Mars's orbit, as did the Chinese one. And now tomorrow, the United States is planning to land a rover on the surface of Mars and explore for different things and do different experiments. Let me ask you a question real quick. Why all this interest in getting to Mars right now? Why is everybody going right now? Why is this all happening at once? Well, there are 2 answers. Number 1 is a pretty basic scientific answer, and that is that Mars is closer to Earth right now than it normally is. In fact, by launching last July, the spacecraft saved about 2 months worth of travel time to get to Mars. Mars is just in its orbit, is closer to us than it normally is, and it's a good time to go. But that first answer implies a second answer, and the second answer that it implies is simply this. They went now because they knew where Mars was going to be. In other words, it's predictable. There's an order to our universe. Scientists can track the orbit of Mars and the orbit of our Earth and how everything travels around the sun and how we travel through space. Scientists know that stuff, and it's repeatable and predictable. It is orderly. Things happen when they are supposed to happen with reasons, and they are just predictable. And that order in the universe allows us to do things like shoot spacecraft off to Mars and actually find this tiny speck of a planet in the huge domain of space. I like the idea that things are orderly. I like the idea that we can predict. We know when the sun will come up every day. We know that time. It changes and varies a bit, but we know how much it varies by, and we know when the sun will come up and when the sun will go down every day. I have a chart that will tell you what phase the moon will be in and when it will rise 6 months from now in Estevan, Saskatchewan. It's just that orderly. It just happens in the same way all the time, and we can predict that sort of stuff because there is that order. And that order tells me that this had to be a designed thing. When I look out into space and when I think about what's going on out there and when I think about the little bit I know about it, it is really hard to believe that it was just an accident. In fact, one old-time preacher said that when you look out at the stars and see everything that's going on in the universe, and when you understand how orderly and predictable things are, it has to speak of a designer. To believe that all of this just came about by accident would be akin to believing that there was an explosion at a factory, and out of that explosion and all those parts flying around, it accidentally created a perfectly working Rolex watch. Explosions and accidents don't typically produce anything that's lovely and beautiful and finely tuned. And yet, as we look around at the universe, even as we look at our own bodies, there is evidence of design everywhere. The psalmist saw this in Psalm 19. He says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out to all the earth, their words to the end of the world." I like that he says, the heavens declare the glory of God, and there is no speech or language where that is not heard. Anyone can look at the sky at night and think, somebody must have created this. Anyone can look at the order around them and believe that there had to be a creator. In fact, I would suggest to you that it takes way more faith to believe that everything was just an accident than to believe that there's a God who actually designed it. So the next time you see a beautiful sunrise or a beautiful sunset, or the next time you're out on a walk and you see all those stars that you can barely count, ask yourself, do I think this is an accident or created? Where did this come from? Because if you'll just give it a minute, you'll know too that the heavens declare the glory of God, and will remind you that nothing is accidental. Nothing is out of control. It has been designed, it is being cared for, and so are you.